Not sure if you can hear on camera, but it is raining hardcore outside in Toronto today. Money can be confusing. I don't think any of us can deny that. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't get much exposure to money education. So today I want to share money mistakes to avoid in your 20s. I'm only 24, so you know, there's more things for me to learn about money. I'm not a money expert, but humans gotta support and help other humans, and that's what this video is really designed to do, is just share some things that I've picked up on that I think because I picked up on them at this point in my life, I'm gonna be in a better place to make better decisions with my money going forward. Hopefully this video will inspire you to do some more digging on your own, because as much as money can be complicated and it can be confusing, it can also be really empowering when you take control of your financial position. Before diving in, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. I put out videos every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with adulting type videos. I want to do more money talk on the channel, so if you've got any requests, leave it in the comments, but let's get into it. If I'm looking at my checking account and I don't have a purpose for the money that's sitting there, then you start romanticizing other things that you could be doing with it right now. Setting a savings goal that you are so passionate about, more passionate about than any immediate use for that money, is key. Because that's what keeps you motivated. That's what keeps you on track. And I really stress the whole your passionate savings goal, because it's tempting to take on what other people think is a good savings goal, especially if you don't have one. Like, I think a common one is, well, I want to own a home one day, which, to be fair, that is a goal for many of us. But if it's not, say, something that you are really excited about, then that's not going to be something that has any like sway on your money decisions. You need something that you're like, whoa, the idea of that is what's keeping this train going. Me personally, I really value my time. I think having freedom over my time is an exciting concept, I guess, and money is a way to do that. So when I'm thinking about savings or investment decisions, I'm thinking, how can I make my money work for me? Where are passive income opportunities? And it's good to be constantly checking in with those goals too, because as we grow and as we change, naturally our priorities will shift with it, and you want to make sure your long-term, short-term goals are something that like you're still as invested in. Chances are you've come across the concept of an emergency fund, but essentially an emergency fund is the savings that you have put aside so that if you were to stop earning income today, you would be able to sustain yourself for a certain amount of time. Typically the benchmark that gets put out there is having 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses, so that if you lose your job or some sort of emergency happens, you've got those funds accessible. Beyond just the financial relief of having an emergency fund and knowing that you're prepared if something unexpected happens, I think it also gives you a little bit of freedom if you have one, because if you're in a job that you're not happy with, you're really unhappy with, you have an opportunity to make a change there without denying or ignoring the financial responsibilities that you have, which might be beyond just you. It might be to kids, it might be to a partner. That being said, 3 to 6 months of living expenses is a lot of money. And I don't think that that should just be brushed over. It probably will take time to build a fund for yourself, and that's okay. However long it takes, if you're working towards it, I just think it's a good habit to get into. Even if you're putting aside like $5 here or $20 there, whatever it is that you can contribute consistently to that fund, it will grow over time. So don't think that if you can't have an emergency fund ready within 6 months that you should just not work towards it. Because hey, even if at this moment in time your emergency fund's at the 2-week mark, that is great. That's better than 0 weeks. That gives you some time. I totally understand why people are very cautious when talking about credit cards, because if you are someone who can't recognize that what you spend with your credit card is something that you owe, it's not free bonus money, then you can get yourself into a pickle, and they come with high interest rates and things can snowball. It can be really scary when it comes to situations like that. But credit cards don't have to be evil if you are using them correctly. I use my credit card all the time for purchases, but I also frequently throughout the month am paying it off. Like, I don't use money that I don't have. If I'm spending it on my credit card, it's because I have that money sitting in my bank account. Using a credit card can help build your credit score if you're paying it off every month. It can also give you bonus incentives. So for example, you could get cash back on a certain percentage of your purchases, or points that you can redeem for some rewards. And another thing I really love about using my credit card and even my debit card, both do this thing really well, is that it tracks my purchases. Which brings me to my next money mistake: not knowing what you spend. If you cannot say a rough amount of how much on average you spend each month, I think you really need to get serious about this, because knowledge is power. If you know your money habits, then that's how you can actively start shifting them, changing them, improving them, or staying consistent with them, whatever it is. But if you don't know, how are you going to be intentional with any spending choice? Chances are you use electronic payments, so it can be as easy as just reviewing your checking account, your credit card statement, and really looking at each line item and assessing, you know, remembering what it is that you bought, where that money went, if that was a good use of funds, if you would change that decision going forward. Especially in the era of subscriptions, where so much money can automatically be leaving our accounts without us actually physically having to do anything. This is like crucial, because what you think you might be spending on average could be very different from the reality. Beyond the better money habit benefits of reviewing your statements regularly, it's also a crucial thing to do, I think, in this day and age, to ensure that there is no fraud happening on your accounts. You know, we use our credit card online shopping all the time, and you just never know when there is a compromise in a company system. And the faster that you're able to find discrepancies, the faster you're able to re-protect yourself. A few months ago, I actually showed on a vlog, I had found a charge on my credit card statement that wasn't very high. It was like, I think for $14 or something, you know, fairly insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But I noticed that it was from Australia, and I could not pinpoint any store, online store, that I would have bought anything from that would have been an Australian company. Nothing like in my email receipts had anything that matched that. So I called my credit card company right away, and they did not kid around. They immediately issued me a new card, shut down my current one. And yes, it was a pain in the ass to call the company, be on hold for however long I was on hold, and then like redo all of my whatever like bills or subscriptions that had that credit card on file. I had to redo it. It's not convenient, but I'd much rather have caught that as quickly as I did within like 24 hours of it hitting my credit card than to have them keep putting charges on there and probably experiment with higher amounts that would have made the whole situation a lot more stressful. Having a strategic plan for any income that comes into your life is a really great way to avoid the vulnerabilities that come when you rely on your present self to figure that out. Setting a budget is a really sexy, glamorous, beautiful, fantastical way to do that. It's actually none of those things. It's quite boring. However, sitting down and saying how much you want to spend on groceries, how much money is going to go to savings, what percentage of your income goes to the emergency fund, blah, 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 blah. It's even great if you can automate that process so that when money comes in, for example, a certain percentage of it immediately goes into savings. Because if it immediately goes into savings, then all of a sudden that money goes from being possibilities to be anything to, oh, I've said that that's savings, so if I dip into that, I've made an intentional choice to take away from that. I actually really fell in love with automation because of taxes, believe it or not. I'm self-employed, I'm a content creator, this is what I do for a living, and my income tax is not immediately taken off my paycheck by an employer because, hello, you're looking at the employer. Thankfully, I've always been really aware of the fact that like, hey, this percentage of my income, it ain't mine, it's the government of Canada. So hit the pause on letting that eliminate from the account. And it's worked beautifully. Like, I never am someone who fears what my accountant is gonna tell me about my taxes that year, because I'm like, I got you. She's ready. I talked about earlier in the video how saving without an intention you're passionate about is hard. And I think that's one of the reasons why retirement is such a tricky one to get young people excited about, because it's so far off in the future, and like a future self of us is gonna figure that out, right? Question mark? No. Depending on where you live, you might have like government programs where some of your income is contributed to some sort of retirement plan. Like here in Canada, we have CPP, the Canada Pension Plan. The reality is, even if you max that out, it's really not that much that you get every month. So you can't rely on it exclusively for your retirement plan. Like you have to be more active about your choices. And that might look like taking advantage of some tools for long-term saving. Like here in Canada, we have two beautiful accounts called the TFSA account and the RRSP account. The TFSA is a tax-free savings account, and the RRSP is a registered retirement savings plan. Now, both of these accounts are different, and one might be more attractive to another depending on your situation. And I probably would need a whole other video to kind of go through the explanation of them both if that's of interest, but essentially both of them have tax incentives that make them really attractive for long-term investing. So for example, if you use a TFSA account to buy some stocks, any earnings that you make in your TFSA, you don't pay tax on, which is amazing. Unlike the TFSA, the RRSP isn't tax-free, but there are some tax benefits when you put money into the RRSP. So you get a little bit of a tax break there, but also one day in the future when you're retired and you take money out of your RRSP, you do end up having to pay tax on anything you take out. However, the idea is that you're probably gonna be in a lower tax bracket, so you're not going to pay as much in taxes. So if you're Canadian and you've never heard of those accounts before, like those are something you're gonna wanna have your eyeballs on. Savings account earn you zilch in interest. Like you do not earn much. And the problem with that is that inflation exists, and that means that typically every year the cost of goods and services goes up by 2%. So if the money in your account isn't gaining interest at least at the rate of inflation, that means that you're losing buying power. Your money isn't worth as much by just sitting there, which when you work hard for your money, as we all do, like that's a pretty depressing future for your money, for it to just be losing value. So looking for an investment vehicle that like you feel like is a good fit for you, investigating them is time, I think, really well spent, whether that be using that money in the real estate market or into businesses that you believe in or the stock market. The sooner you can figure out a plan though, the better, because when you're in your 20s, you have the benefit of so much time. And in situations like the stock market, that time can mean big money, because the faster or younger you get into the market, the more you can benefit from the beauty of compound interest. In this situation, we're seeing 3 people who invest the same amount of money each month, starting at different ages. Jack at 25, Jill at 35, and Joey at 45. And just because Jack started at 25, even in comparison to Jill, who only started 10 years later, he's making or earning more than double than what Jill made. Takeaway here is that the stock market can be a really interesting place to put your attention. I put this point in here specifically for renter's insurance because I know a lot of people in their 20s rent. I haven't personally had to use it yet, but I know a close friend of mine who had water seep out of her floor, and it didn't ruin any of her stuff, but if it had, thankfully she had renter's insurance that she could have had that stuff recovered, which is huge, especially if like it would have been a huge leak, like a huge flood or something that would have damaged all of her goods. Renter's insurance protects you in situations like that. It's one of those expenses that is easy to be like, oh, you know, what are the chances that something's gonna happen? But you never know. A real trend in online shopping right now is this over celebration of installment payments, like interest-free installment payments for, you know, things beyond just big ticket items, like just even regular clothing stores. I know quite a few now have the option where you can split your purchase into 4 easy pay, no interest payments, which seems really attractive because like why why would I spend $100 now when I can spend $25 this month, $25 next month, blah, blah, blah. And full disclosure, I have used those before for even like bigger ticket items when there is a sale a little bit earlier than maybe I would have been prepared to buy the item. That's a way to lock in the price. So I think there is a smart way to use it, but I think there can be a problem if like every purchase is being done that way and you lose track of all of these like installment payments that you're paying, because again, they quickly add up, and if you're doing that for every purchase you make, then you're really going to lose track of how much you're spending. The reality of your finances is no one is as invested in your financial position as yourself. You are the one that benefits the most from doing smart things with your money, and I think that warrants you putting in the time to get educated on all the things that you want to explore with your money. I've been reading a lot of personal finance articles and books and watching money investing videos on YouTube, and it's just so empowering when you've got knowledge of how things work and what your options are. It doesn't mean that you can't seek advice or get expert help, but I think seeking advice, seeking help becomes a lot more advantageous when you've already done your own research and you've already got your own kind of theories about what the best route is to go, because then you can hear what information someone else is telling you and really seriously consider it from all angles, rather than just being fed something and influenced by what they think is a good route for you. So do not sleep on the power of education. I always go back to that. I think educating yourself in a lot of different areas, but money especially, takes a lot of the fear out of it. I think that's a good final note to end on. I want to hear in the comment section down below, what is a money mistake you think people should avoid in their 20s? Whether you're in your 20s and you've gained some insight, or you're out of your 20s and you've got wisdom to share, I'd really appreciate that stuff being put in the comment section. Also, let me know what other money videos you want to see from me. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all very soon with a new video. Until then, bye guys.